Alright, so I have finally caught up with the Chucky TV series, therefore meaning now that I have officially caught up with the franchise in its original run and story. The last video I made was me taking a look back at the movies, and this video will be me essentially going over the TV series up until where it is now, which it is in the middle of its third season. Seasons 1 and 2 obviously took place with 8 episodes each, and how the show wanted to do season 3 was that it would still release 8 full episodes in it as well, but the season would just be split into 2 parts essentially. So where we had left off in the movies was that Chucky had gone into Nika's body and went off with Tiffany, and the soul of Chucky was now seen that it can be split into other vessels and bodies at the same time, like with numerous good guy dolls. In the first season of the Chucky series, we meet the main protagonist Jake Wheeler and see him purchase a good guy doll from a garage sale for an art project of his, and of course, it is possessed by the serial killer that we are all familiar with, Charles Lee Ray, aka Chucky. In this season, Chucky tries to convince Jake to kill someone, specifically this girl who has been messing with him as a bully, named Lexi. Jake, standing on his morals, chooses not to, and Chucky continues to kill people as now Jake and Lexi band forces together to try and stop the killer doll. And with that, they bring in another classmate of theirs to the mission named Devin. Devin, being a true crime enthusiast, becomes a great fit for the group, as not only is he able to help them out in attempting to defeat Chucky with his knowledge and research, but with Jake being intimately fond of him, they both start a relationship with each other. With this trio trying to stop the serial killer doll in his tracks, plenty of more killings take place at the hands of Chucky, many of those being family members of the newly made group. In the first season of the show, Chucky manages to kill Jake's dad and Devin's mom, rendering each of them orphans. And it also kills Lexi's dad and her boyfriend Junior as well, who is also Jake's cousin. And speaking of Junior, now that we're bringing him up here, he was an important element in the first season of Chucky, as the evil doll himself manipulated Junior into not just getting himself a kill, but murdering his own father with the doll himself. And this action here sets off this collection of good guy dolls to come alive, where the Chucky plan now was to have them basically take over the world, with 72 of them being noted and counted in the show. Meanwhile, Tiffany and Chucky in the Nika body were out and again up to their evil mishaps, but what was then revealed in the show was that Nika and Chucky were able to switch back and forth in that body whenever they saw blood in certain situations, or when the body got hit hard enough by someone else's hands. But with that, Tiffany found out about the body switching and showed that she still wanted to keep both of them around in that body, as she didn't want to kill Chucky in it, and also enjoyed Nika's company whenever she could. So with that, Tiffany, while still wanting to keep Nika around, but not have Chucky come alive in her and try to kill or hurt her, Tiffany went on to amputate Nika's arms and legs to keep her dormant. Tiffany then also at around that time helps the Chucky doll in his world domination type plan and has a truck full of Chuckies ready to go out. But oh, Andy Barclay is also back, and throughout the first season we see him and his foster sister Kyle return to try and take out all of the remaining Chuckies in the world. Andy, during this, in an effort to keep Kyle safe, decides to leave her and take out the remaining Chuckies on his own. And this is where we see him at the end of the first season take hold of the truck full of Chuckies. There, while it seemed like everything was going to Andy's plan, we are then met by a Tiffany doll holding a gun to Andy's head, and that is where we end off with the first season. Season 2 begins off of that last cliffhanger, and Andy manages to get Tiffany off of him and is then seen driving the truck full of Chuckies off of a cliff. Meanwhile, back to the trio at hand, a Chucky is still seen to be alive, and during that time, Jake has a foster brother that ends up linking up with them and Chucky during an unexpected meetup, and the foster brother, Gary, gets blown up by the Chucky to death. And the trio who were present at the scene get the blame for it, and then get sent over by a therapist to a church-themed school to fix themselves. This right here ends up being the main setting of the second season, as people around the school there start dying, and during that, the trio meets this happy-go-lucky girl named Nadine that learns about the Chucky lore and joins into their squad. Throughout their time at the church, they are seen to be hunted by a Chucky, only in this case, this one specifically isn't out to kill them, and is only there to take pictures of them as intel for someone else. When this Chucky gets captured, the group managed to reprogram him to become nice and understanding, and he then becomes known as Nice Chucky. Later, another stronger Chucky comes out to get some kills, and Nice Chucky proves his worth here as he beats Strong Chucky in a fight. But later, something happens with the Nice Chucky that then has him killing Nadine by throwing her out a window. At around that time, we also see that Andy is still alive, and that he had been held captive by this bald Chucky that is known as the Colonel, and that the therapist there was also being involved in this whole ordeal in assisting that Chucky. And he gets rescued by Devin and Lexi and gets taken to the church, where he then goes on to get his get back by killing Colonel Chucky. Now, throughout everything that is going on there is also another plot going on in the season, with Tiffany holding Nika hostage as well. We are then also greeted by Tiffany's kids and Glenn and Glenda by seeing them again on the screen for the first time since the 2004 movie Seed of Chucky. Glenn and Glenda are seen to know about Tiffany holding Nika hostage and essentially let her go free, as Nika also goes on to get these robot arms onto her to help her get around. While escaping, Nika and Glenda end up going to the church, and as Kyle also gets to the location, an exorcism is then performed on the good Chucky doll so that body could be freed, and they will later transfer the Chucky soul inside of Nika over to that doll body and essentially free Nika to 100% take control control of her own body. The good Chucky doll gets the exorcism, and that soul goes into the father of the church and blows him up. And then now it is time for Nika to send over her own Chucky soul over to the now lifeless doll, and it works, as the therapist watching over then immediately runs off with the doll. Andy chases her down and shoots the good guy doll many times as the therapist goes off and runs away. And with that, we get a nice wholesome montage of the aftermath where it appears that Chucky has finally been defeated, only for it to be revealed in the season 2 finale that Chucky had actually switched places with the therapist, and that the therapist's soul was in the body of the good guy doll when it got shot up, meaning that once again Chucky was still out there, now in that therapist's body, which later on Chucky switches over to a new good guy doll. Now, at around that time as well, going over to the Tiffany plot, it was revealed that the bride doll from the Seed of Chucky movie was actually still alive, with Jennifer Tilly still in there, and it led to this pretty humorous piece of dialogue of what she was doing in the meantime.
For years I've made you money playing online poker and voicing Bonnie on Family Guy.
Unfortunately, later on, Jennifer, after seeing her own sister die due to Tiffany's murderous actions, she decided to try and get away from Tiffany while running in the bride body and got hit by a truck and died. Tiffany and Glenn, after that, go to the church school location after the exorcism incident, and Nika, still mad at Tiffany, took a shot at Tiffany, but Glenn had taken a bullet for her and was now said to be dying at the hospital. So Tiffany, after finding out about that, brought the original Glenn doll to the hospital and did what needed to be done to keep both Glenn and Glenda alive, and that was to transfer the souls over to the doll. The Glenn/Glenda doll then comes up with a new name to acknowledge them by, and it was Gigi. Then when Christmas time came around, the kids had returned to the city of Hackensack, and Tiffany, in an attempt to find another bride doll, saw that Lexi's mom had one and snuck into her house, in which Chucky had done so as well, and he ends up killing the mom. Lexi kills that Chucky, but it is then seen that Chucky and Tiffany seem to have already corrupted Lexi's sister Caroline, and they run off with her to the surprise of everyone. Oh, and they took the bride doll as well, which is then revealed to be another Chucky under all of the makeup and everything, and with Chucky throwing a stab at Tiffany and the screen cutting off, that is where our second season ends. Now for the third season, this one, they decided to split it into 2 parts, so as said before, we're just going to cover this first half, and on the next video, we'll simply go over the final 4 episodes of the season and see how they go about it. So for season 3, it begins with it being revealed that Chucky was now at the White House, and that at that same time, the trio were each doing their own individual things. Jake had become an influencer, Devin returned to podcasting, and Lexi had also gone on to become an influencer in order to gain some attention for herself to help find her missing sister, Caroline. Going back to the way that season 2 ended, we see that Tiffany is still alive, as it is revealed that she immediately got arrested by the cops, who still see her as Jennifer Tilly, and Caroline with that goes on to live on her own with Chucky. With Tiffany now out of the mix and Chucky being at the White House, he went on to call the trio of kids to mock them and show them that he was still alive, and the trio was now set to go out and kill him once and for all. Chucky continues to kill people in and around the White House, and the reasoning to this was that, well, first, Chucky had noticed signs of aging on his doll body, and after going to a doctor, he found out that due to the exorcism that he had in the previous season, this had led to the spirit of Damballa abandoning him, and that basically Chucky was just now gonna age quickly and basically die off, unless if he managed to sacrifice 6 people inside of an evil house, which Chucky then came up with the White House idea. Now, before we get into the climax of the first half of the 3rd season so far, we did also have another plot with Tiffany going on, where she went on to face trial in the Jennifer Tilly body, and while Tiffany was telling everyone the truth about how she's really Tiffany inside of Jennifer's body, everyone just shrugged her off for her crimes and assumed that it was just Jennifer Tilly going crazy. Tiffany goes to jail and is sentenced to death row for her eventual death sentence. Tiffany, while in there, manages to do some more voodoo magic and starts controlling people with her voodoo dolls, and is now imminent on potentially escaping by this method of controlling people. And that's where we end off with Tiffany. As for Chucky though, in the 4th episode of the 3rd season, the White House has this huge Halloween party at the location, and that is a prime time and spots for Chucky to get his remaining kills. The trio of kids, having already seen that Chucky is at the White House and up to no good, manage to get themselves into the government building by Lexi connecting with the older son of the president, and the trio is now set off to find Chucky at the house. Unfortunately for them, Chucky ends up getting several more kills under his name, with a giant chandelier falling on a group, and while Chucky thought that this would have been enough to stop the aging process in his doll body, for whatever reason it didn't become the case, as when he went on to take off his Halloween mask, it was shown that he had aged immensely in that short amount of time, and he showed his disappointment with this line here.
What's wrong? Are you sick again?
I'm fucking dying!
And that's the cliffhanger that we end off on. Hype is being built on this new episode coming up, and as more images and trailers have come up showcasing Chucky's new look and how he will try to get out of this predicament, we'll just have to wait and see. Now, before I go off and end this video, I know that this explanation of what has gone down so far in the show might have been very complicated, and in such a short amount of time, as plenty of things did take place, and I didn't even go into detail of many of the things that happened, but I do want to praise the show as it actually managed to make good use of the soul splitting, and didn't have it just be this one-dimensional story of just an individual killer doll story. And the risks that they're taking here are pretty interesting. Like, who would have thought that this old / aging Chucky narrative would have gone down in the way that it did. Also, I think it's pretty neat to see Chucky's history as a kid and how he had met Tiffany and everything to be shown in the show, as it adds on to the dynamic of the character and those around him like Tiffany. And since the series is rated TVMA, it is also wild to see just how gory and brutal some of the kills in the show go on to be, rarely ever holding back. Acting on all parties also adds on to the goodness of the show, and its way of using social media in that universe is not that bad either. The show also had a couple of interesting segments where the fourth wall was broken, and while I don't think that these segments are canon to the story at all, since they were basically like kind of separate, in them we had a Chucky talking to us, the audience, in some episodes where he would explain to us what had happened so far. Like in the season 1 and season 2 finales, he went ahead and gave us a kill count, just telling us the people and entities that had died in the show, giving us some conclusive numbers. And in another episode, that being season 2 episode 4, that one ended up pretty much just being a Tiffany episode where she tried to hide the fact that she was holding Nika hostage from a party. And in that episode and those segments, we even had the WWE superstar Liv Morgan make an appearance in those segments with Chucky, where she ended up dying to him there. But yeah, stuff like that sort of outside of the box thinking and just going for it gave this franchise a refreshing look and feeling that would surely gain the interest of Chucky fans all around. And the Rotten Tomato scores of the show just adds on to it and gives it that sort of praise as well. And now, whether the show will be able to keep it up is yet to be seen, as there are only just 4 episodes left in the 3rd season, which will be rolling out in the next 4 weeks. And me myself, I'll be here to see how they go ahead and do that, but for now, that'll be the end of this video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you in another one.